And this morning I have got my good friend from New York, Courtney Hale Starhart. She's here today. I know I'd always mispronounce all of it, how it goes, but you can introduce
It's
yourself.
all
I
perfect.
love having you here. We're going to talk about what you're doing and all kinds of fun stuff. So, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for saying fun, because I think we all need a little bit more fun and to enjoy life more. So I'm here about that. I'm here in my studio. I'm in Long Island, which, oh my gosh, I didn't know anything about Long Island before I moved here. I came from Albuquerque, New Mexico, after 20 years of training um,
Okay.
a year and a half ago. So how
And
long
what do
have
you
we
think
known
so
each
far?
other? It's been oh god,
A few
it's been
years.
amazing. It's been a few years, right? So you knew me pre New York, probably.
I did. I knew you when you were in Arizona. We met when we first started the plant medicine path, and we've just gotten to be great friends ever since.
Well, yeah, and watching you guys do what you've done, it's much needed, and it seems like a lot of beautiful hubs of people are showing up to give the support to the community that we really need, because no one person can do everything, and it feels like family what you guys are doing. I'm really grateful.
Well, thank you so much. That's exactly what we're trying to do here is bring this community together and have a place for everybody to come and be who they are and offer what they have to offer, and it's a safe space for us.
Yeah, and I mean, I've done so much healing with plant medicine and also have seen so many people heal deeply. But I've also seen it done wrong, like a sadly infinite amount of times. And so I'm grateful that I have the protocols from my elders and my ancestors. Um, some ancestors were French. Some ancestors were we like to talk about that would be fun. I'm sorry to get off track, but we like
No,
to
we're
open
just
things
let's
up with
talk.
vision and with like making relations. So it's my natural tendency to like introduce myself and then be like, "Oh, and what about your relations?" So we go around what we call the medicine wheel, and maybe I'll do it in a couple different ways during this interview, but we
Okay.
introduce ourselves. And so sometimes that includes our ancestors. Like in the East, we talk about our mother's mothers. So my mother's mother was Native. My mother's father was French, that's the South. My father's mother was Welsh, and my father's father was Scottish. So, like,
Okay.
I have quite a wild composition. How about you?
Let's see. So all
Mother's
over the
mother.
place. My mother's mother was Italian. My mother's father was Italian. My father's mother is Spanish, and my father's father is Irish. So all over.
I can see all of those ancestors in you. You know what I mean? I had this interview, so I love Long Island. I loop back around. Forgive me, but the thing about Long Island is the quality of people. The weather is spectacular. I like four hard seasons, so I don't mind that it snows a little bit in winter. It's really pretty.
Sure.
And then the trees turn and do their autumn colors. But we're like more Cape Cod than I had thought. I was upstate New York
Mm.
before in like black dirt country. I studied with Susan Weed for years in Woodstock. So that's where I got my start with my pre qualifications for shamanism. I had to have studied herbalism, seed sovereignty, some type of body studies. So, martial arts, Reiki, yoga, homeopathy, flower essences, all kinds of things before I was even allowed to start studying shamanism with my teacher, which then took 10 years, was what I
10
was doing
years.
in the Southwest. And when I got done with that process, I came to New York. And I had started pouring ayahuasca ceremonies, but it didn't feel right anymore. It
Mhm.
felt too constrictive. It felt like there was kind of like a council of unofficial people who were judging me and persecuting me for not being as something as they were, which is
Mm.
the antithesis of what medicine teaches us. So, you know,
That
those are
is the
people who are
antithesis.
traumatized. You know, those are people who haven't worked with medicine. They haven't done their stuff. And I'm so glad to be in New York because I don't even get a whiff of that here.
That's wonderful. So let's the last time that you came on and we talked about medicine space and keeping the space safe, and I loved that conversation. Um, Before we delve into the Hopi prophecy and the medicine wheel and things that we want to discuss today, I would love to hear about what you're doing now and what you've got going up there in New York.
Okay. Um, I'm giving people rubber meets road as much as I can. I've been doing a lot of privates with corporate people, people who are professionals who may not have time to get away to the Amazon. They might not want to either because they like
Mhm.
having the bridge.
Sure.
Um, because I've trained with Native elders, I do hold the culture and the lineage intact. But it's kind of like getting a doctorate. It's where you have to take all of what you know and then you represent it and repackage it into something
Hmm.
of your own. So
Hmm.
that's what they consider mastery, and that's when you graduate. So it was good timing that I came out here too, because I'd broken out of the old mold, which is 10,000 years old, and that's wonderful. But the most impactful thing would be to connect with people, say on Wall Street,
Hmm.
or maybe government or entrepreneurs, but people who really have a big impact and are decision makers. I want to touch their hearts and their workforces. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Absolutely. I mean, just because we are working and living within this spiritual community, right? There's still the whole 3D world that still deserves the healing and the openness and all of the beauty that comes with working with these medicines and in this realm.
The more that we can bring to them of that, I think the better off our world is going to be. And to kind of reduce the polarity of this
Mhm.
us and them and either or. You know, you're either
Yeah,
for spirituality or you're against it. You're either for capitalism, you're against it. It's like, no, it's this and also. I'm quite for capitalism when the money is well spent in a thoughtful way. And that's
sure.
what I'd like to do is help people to see affluence and to see that when you treat your workforce with love and when you treat people with fairness, they're going to be more productive.
Hmm.
And that's not some Mary Poppins bullshit. This is actual
Right,
fact. Like we have
right.
scientific data that proves this. Oh, and I have little machines that can measure it, girl. Wow. I love living in these times.
What do you have there?
This is well, I'll show you the box so you can see it a little bit better. This is
Okay.
called the M Wave 2. I've been following the HeartMath Institute for 20 years. One of my favorite teachers, Joseph Chilton Pierce, was a researcher on the mind body connection. He had studied with Muktananda, but he had a PhD, and he had put together the pieces of the different brains we have, how they work, because we actually have four brains. That ties into the medicine wheel, too. Most people live in their amygdala, basically. And when you're living in that space, it hijacks all the rest of your intelligence. It kind of
Mhm.
lies to you. It's the mitote. It's the smack talk in your head saying that there's an imminent threat. It's like our Achilles heel as a species, but our divinity is in heart brain coherence. When we can
Mhm.
drop into the heart and we can quiet all of this, our field expands. When the brain waves and the heart waves get in sync, imagine like waves traveling along the shore, and that
Mhm.
when they're in unison, they expand each other
Right.
in a beautiful way rather than creating interference.
Smashing against each other.
Right. Like
Mhm.
when we're playing small, when we're being petty, when we're pitting people against each other or being negative, let's say, then we're creating, and we can show this, waves that like degrade each other and bounce off of each other. Our next step in human evolution is to drop into a different state of consciousness. Does that make sense?
It makes
I know
total
I'm talking
sense.
really fast, but
No,
I'm
you're
super
not.
excited.
You have a beautiful way of explaining things. It makes total sense.
So we put this puppy right on the ear. Look. And then you turn this on. You can actually
Mhm.
plug this into your computer and you can see when your heart and your mind are in coherence, your heart and your brain. So you can plug it into the computer or you can do it handheld. I don't know if I can get it to turn on, but it'll actually light up. So this is good for the corporate people and the busy people. It's also fun for kids. I was a school teacher for real. Before I was a shaman, I was a school
I
teacher.
I imagine you were a wonderful one, Courtney.
Um, they didn't know what to make of me. I was terrible. I probably would have made a good art teacher. But you plug that in, and what happens is you get a readout. And long story short, in order to get out of the box that is our Achilles heel, which is our central nervous system, our fight or flight reactions, it's hard to get out of it, but you have to quiet the mind first. You do that through the breath. And then if you really want it to go bonkers and your field to get big, you have to be happy.
You have to be happy. How
When
do you
you
get happy?
think happy thoughts, swear to God, the data says just conclusively, where's my little pad? I wrote some things down here because I knew I wouldn't remember it. There are three things that go up: focus, calm, and rest. Statistically, if you
Okay.
practice this, will go up by 1/4 to 1/3. And anxiety, fatigue, and depression will go down by more than 50%. So, what that shows up like in your world is that you have like more aha moments, like more plugged inness. You can get stuff done faster. I noticed after I started
Mm,
taking plant medicine and doing meditation together,
right?
everything became so much easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What
Sure.
did it do that for you?
Oh, yes. Much, much, much. Well, I was just getting out of my own way a lot more often.
I mean, from the progress you've made, it looks like you've been on medicine.
Exactly. Exactly. Lots of it. And not just medicine that I actually
I'm
take. I mean,
kidding.
all kinds of medicine. Life is medicine for me these days.
What's your favorite daily practice? I'm just curious.
I would say for me, it's meditation, and that has changed over time. When I was, before I came to plant medicines, and I did my first Aya journey 4 years ago in October, so almost 4 years ago. Um, Before that, I was in a member of a 12-step program for many, many, many years. And I was taught how to meditate in treatment, right? I never got it. I never understood. Like, I don't even understand. I can't sit here and be quiet because my mind's going crazy and there's 1,000 thoughts and I'm trying to be quiet and I'm thinking about this and that and a billion other things. I never understood it. And I don't even know if I could explain it now, how it's different. But for me to be able to just sit and quiet, even if my mind's going crazy, I'm not going crazy on myself or my mind going crazy. I'm just trying to bring it back together. And practice, 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 and 4 years of practice, and now I can do it a lot better. I can get to that quiet place. I can get to that quiet place with breath. I can get to it with music. I can get to it with guided meditation, which, I know people say, well, you should just meditate. I love guided meditations. They're
I do
beautiful.
too.
They bring me to all kinds of stuff. So meditation, that's my daily practice these days. And whether that's first thing in the morning to set my intentions for the day and quiet, or that's how I end my evening in the bathtub almost every single night. How about you?
Wow, I'm there with you though. Like I'm not done meditating with you. The
It's
water, I
quieting
love the
fun.
water too. Yeah. So if I'm home, then the bathtub with mineral salts is one of my favorites, especially if I'm in a place where I just can't get the quiet I want, or if I can't get my breath, to the depth that I want. Because we have that three sets of lungs, and most people don't realize that. A lot of people are just like chronic shallow breathing.
Yeah.
Like when my clients first come to me, we do a check in, and I'm like, okay, so we're going to do like 10 deep breaths together. And they're like, I'm done. I'm like, gee, you're so funny. People are so funny. I'm like, you actually have no idea how to breathe.
We don't know how to breathe. We don't know how to breathe.
And they're like
From
all in a rapid fire hurry
infancy.
to get it done.
Yeah, we really don't know how to breathe. We're not taught that.
I know. That's one of the things that we like to teach to people um, at our retreats. And I want to say that it's getting more and more beautiful, I think, kind of like a garden. I think of a community like I think of a garden, like
Mhm.
permaculture. You have some plants that are good at this, and same with people, and some are good at that. We recently acquired a really good treasurer who's been leading organizations for 20 years, so that's great. We recently acquired a secretary who's a therapist and does EMDR. And she has a whole
Mm,
amazing Buddhist skill
beautiful.
set and meditation and chanting. Anyway, so as each person becomes a permanent fixture in the community, we acquire these new beautiful skill sets. It's like watching a garden grow, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So we teach a lot of skills. We start with breath work, and then we go into the medicine wheel. And people are supposed to have done these exercises before. Like we actually have a manual that you can buy on Amazon or you can print out on your own. And
Okay.
it goes through exercises that are really helpful for people. Um, and, there are video links where we send you to breath work and different kinds of chanting.
Okay.
Um, I like conscious walking a lot too. I like
Now tell me
silence.
about that. If somebody doesn't know what that means.
Oh,
Like me.
again, there's the medicine wheel. You'd think that I had like obsessive compulsive disorder, but it's actually like a shamanic glitch. You start seeing the world in these four quarters, whether it's, Ayurveda or it's the Chinese philosophy, right? Oh, and European herbalism, that earth, air, fire, and water, right?
Okay.
And Wicca and pagan and everyone in the
Right.
world, right?
Right.
So I certainly didn't invent it and I don't own it. But for us, East is fire, and that's the beginning. So that's 0 to 13. So we look at your life in terms of inception and birth and, who were you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It's almost like a game. Like we do this walking together, but it's in the
Right.
manual so people can play with it beforehand. I like bubble diagrams. So when people are talking, you notice it's kind of therapeutic if you're walking and you're doing all of these body things. I feel like bubble diagrams more imitate the flow of conversation, the way we go off in a direction and then we come
Mm-hmm.
back. And we go, oh, it was connected here. It's the way neural networks work. So if we want to reprogram our neural networks, we want to imitate them. So a lot of shamanism is doing that, like moving with our biological nature. So yeah, 0 to 13, 13 to 26 is the South. That's adolescence. And usually it's our career, our studies, kind of our formative years. West is
You're
adulthood.
sorry. Your thing got just a little quiet. I want to be
Oh, it
able
got
to
a little
hear this.
quiet.
Oh, much better. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I
Much
have to be
better.
right up on it, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Much better.
I started gesticulating
Mm-hmm.
and it moved. I feel like I
Mm-hmm.
need a full time team to deal with me. Well, so the medicine wheel
That's
has
good.
those four quadrants, and
Okay.
their fire is for your purpose or your vision in life. Earth is for the habits that you need to form in order to make
Mm-hmm.
that happen. You can't just have a vision, then you have to do it. And then the west is the meaning, that's the emotions, the passion. And the north is the clarity and the planning of how that works, right? So you can also have some habits that you have ideas you want to do, but if you don't do them, it doesn't matter. So
Right.
that's the north. The north is like the part where you use your brain to check in. Did I do my meditation today? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really
Yes.
tracking and paying
Absolutely.
attention to that.
Mm-hmm. So you are offering something to really guide people through a specific time period. Give them
Yeah.
very specific things to do in this 5 week time period.
One thing at a time, but it's like a shamanic Lego where
Yeah.
once you put all four of these quadrants together in a balance, it's like that's the earth wheel, we call it. And when you get that right, you can go up and down the tree of consciousness. We often see a tree as a symbol for the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't get up the tree until you've made that solid platform. So we
Mm-hmm.
call it the earth wheel or the medicine wheel because it
Okay.
gives you the ability to travel in consciousness with or without medicine. But the medicine
Right.
definitely kicks the door open. Once you know where the door is, it's easier to get back, if that makes sense. And we're expanding our capacity, like you said, every time we practice. My elders said it was like dipping a cloth. Like we're very like visceral, like farming, earthy people. So they use
Mm-hmm.
earthy analogies. Like if you took a piece of fabric and you were to dip it in a vat of dye, you wouldn't expect it to take fully the first time. You dip it over and over again until you get the color you want. And that's
Mm-hmm.
like us with expanding our consciousness. We have to just keep on dipping ourselves in the cosmic light and that frequency. And then eventually it sticks in our fibers.
So you think so? So and this just makes sense. Every when you go back to the medicine, whatever that is, whether it's medicine, actual medicine that you're taking, or meditation medicine, or whatever the medicine
Sound
is.
medicine.
Yeah, you can go
Laughter.
in and become closer each time. You can achieve that closer. How am I trying to say this? You can get there quicker each time because you become more familiar with where you're going,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
the joy gets deeper, and it's not even faith. Like, I call it finding the force. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's
Mm-hmm.
not the force, it's finding the force. It's a continuous action. It's like
Yeah,
lovemaking or like dancing or like the spiral of life. Nothing's
right.
ever quite still, or like the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It's a finding. That's why it's beautiful being alive, because we have to pay attention to it every day and find the
Mm-hmm.
force. And I don't know, some people do that their way. I don't know. There are so many ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you know it when you're there. Like, I can
Yes.
tell that you're holding this vibrant consciousness, like, and you can feel it in other people, right?
Yes. You definitely can feel it in other people
And then they
because we're
say,
in the same plane.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. I love this. I love having conversations with you. Let's talk about the Hopi prophecy for a minute because I love this. I think this is beautiful, and I want to hear more.
By the way, one of my favorite habits, because I'm big on habits, mine is yoga. I've recently been getting into lifting a little bit more. I
Ooh,
love
okay.
soaking and fermentation. I
Mm.
love hacks that give us consciousness and make life easier, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
living light on the earth and getting the most bang for the buck. I brew kombucha, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
a maniac about it. And I notice a huge difference in my health. When you're
Mm.
microdosing or you're working with medicine, when you're trying to build new neural networks, you need the Lego blocks, like the building blocks, the amino acid chains. The kombucha mother actually produces yeast and bacteria. If you've ever
Mm.
seen the mother, it looks like cartilage. And so
Mhm.
people look. I mean, I'm almost 50. I don't want to say that out loud too much, but seriously, like, I notice a big difference in my skin and hair and nails when I drink this.
Wow.
And you can make new neural networks better.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay,
You're
good to know. I love kombucha. It's one of my
totally
favorites.
random, but you can brew it yourself.
I'm gonna have to learn how to do that.
That's part of our package. When I go to New Mexico this time, I'm giving people kombucha mothers, and I'm telling them, if you really want to change your world, change your body, change your mind. But you
Totally.
have to build new neural networks with something, and our
Hmm.
food is totally deficient.
Hmm. Hmm.
I know
It
that was
is.
rando. Thank you for bearing
No,
with
it's
me.
yeah, of course. I love that. Okay,
Okay.
let's talk Hopi prophecy.
All right. So, what do you know about the Hopi before I
So I don't
launch?
know a lot about it. I know the beautiful things that the quotes that I read on Facebook and whatnot, but I don't know a lot about it. So I would love for you to tell me.
I often wonder where people are at, because I'm noticing that in New York, people know next to nothing about Native American culture.
Hmm.
Um, but they're super sweet and they're super smart and they're really excited and open. So I just have to be like, okay, I got to go back. So there were different tribes, there were different places that were conquered. In the Southwest, we were conquered mainly by the Spanish. The Hopi are way out there in the desert. That painting there is a painting of Navajo land. The Hopi are even farther out west in the middle of nowhere. So what happened is the cultural assimilation was mitigated by the desert. And so, though the Spanish did do their very best, I think there were some tribes that poured tallow on the Spanish and set them on fire in their armor,
Oh my
which kind of
goodness.
pales in comparison to what the Spanish did to the people of the Southwest. So
Hmm.
they preserved their culture because of the distance, and some some minor warfare, but at any rate, they preserved a lot of oral tradition, and they claim to have an oral tradition of 5 worlds. Um, this particular celestial alignment that kind of clicked in 2012 is similar around the world. If you're looking at the precession of the equinoxes, right?
Hmm.
The planet has a wobble that does its thing every 56,000 years, 52,000. Um, we're at the knot point. So we're at this weird point. They have an oral tradition that the world kind of shifts. Sometimes it blows up. Sometimes it gets wiped out by water or comets. Sometimes
Hmm.
by man's stupidity. And looks like we're looking at that cycle here.
Yeah, we seem to be in that right now.
So we're up to our eyeballs in that. Some tribes in Mesoamerica talk about the 13 hells, and we may be in the 13th by now, maybe the 12th. I mean, it's pretty warm.
I can
So
believe that.
right around now, sometime, the quickening is supposed to happen, which is like a little portal. And so it's like this aperture almost in dimensional consciousness, where again, here's you can't make this up. You can only hear this around a campfire with a bunch of native elders. That elder brother and sister were once with us, that the ayahuasca was left here, like ET phone home, plant medicine in general. We're right now supposed to be making lots of those calls asking for information about how to save our sorry asses from imminent disaster.
Mhm.
It's possible, though, but it's like running the gauntlet. And like there are many of us here who've prepared in many lives, and this one, to be ready right now.
Mhm.
So the good news is like all hands on deck. We have the training materials, but the hope you say, there's this little prophecy rock where like the line goes up and it goes over, and there's a line that goes down. And the people who get stuck not going up in consciousness, I'm not sure what happens to them. The drawing isn't conclusive, but it
Mhm.
looks like they're screwed pretty much. And that the best way to do things would be to the people who elevate their consciousness. Along with those people, it seems that they're working well together, they're growing food, and they're in a happy community. And
Mhm.
elevation in that sense means a higher consciousness. When the people
Right,
who go up,
right,
they're not literally walking up a mesa, they're
right,
elevating
right.
consciousness.
Their
Yeah.
consciousness, vibration.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, and so there's a group that's been left here to do this. Is that the prophecy?
It's our mission, should we choose to accept it, to elevate our consciousness and to learn how to work together for making an upward spiral. When our body, like with the monitor, you can
Yeah.
feel it in the medicine, right? When you're deep in the medicine, you're expansive, and your
Right.
energy body, you feel like you're overlapping with everyone. Well, you are. It's just that your generator has turned on and your energy body has gotten much bigger because you're sucking in light from Father and you're sucking up energy from Mother, and it meets in your heart. And that field goes ba boom. And when all of our fields do that together, they say that's how the Star Nations were able to do things like Teotihuacan, like the Great Pyramids, like Stonehenge.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Mm-hmm.
mind technology.
Mm-hmm. It had to have been.
They still can't even make a tiny little pyramid. They can't even make a
Exactly.
small one.
I mean, it had to have been. There's no other explanation.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And the
Hmm.
women were running things.
Always.
Yeah. And so something happened in there where there was some kind of wound to the patriarchy, I think, that left them feeling emasculated enough that they decided that we needed to not be in power anymore as the women. There are
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of oral traditions about that too. And the recommendation from the elders is that we learn to all find this internal peace between masculine and feminine, and that we all respect each other. You know, the black, white, red, yellow, and brown nations, the rainbow nations, the animal, the vegetable, the mineral, and the spirit world,
Mm-hmm.
and the star nations. A lot of disclosure is happening now that makes a lot of what my elders said seem not so silly.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
We have
Wow.
access to higher consciousness, and whatever that means to you is what that means. Are there beings in other dimensions that simply aren't as dense? Wouldn't you think so?
Of course.
At the very least, I have evidence of angels and miracles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
As
have
do I.
supernatural experiences of higher powers?
I
Will you
believe
tell us a
you.
story?
The story
Sorry
of
to put you on
mine.
the spot. Yeah. I want to hear something supernatural from Michelle.
Something supernatural from like a plant medicine experience.
Anything, like something that opened your heart and made you sure forever that
Yeah.
higher power
Okay, I'll
is
tell
with
you
you.
one.
Yeah.
So, and this is well before plant medicines.
Okay.
When I started understanding spirituality um, a lot deeper when I became a member of the 12 step program. I started working the steps. I started delving into things that I'd never dove into before. I had always been very religious. My parents weren't religious, but I had always found great comfort in God, in church as a child, my whole life. I don't remember a time in my life. And that was not put onto me by my parents. That was my own thing. And so God was always a big part of my life. Except for me, then, God was this gray haired man who was sitting in this chair and his son was next to him, and they were waiting for me to do good on earth and then I could come up to heaven. And this was my idea, but I believed in it very strongly. And God gave me great comfort. And not that I felt like he was a punishing God by any means, loving God. So that was my vision. So that stuck with me really until I went in and started doing plant medicines and going into my consciousness deeper. I still believe in God, but it just looks very different.
Right.
So when I went to treatments, um, I was sitting there listening to something, and of course I told you I was trying to understand meditation and just trying to understand things deeper at a deeper level. And all of a sudden, somebody said something, and it hit me that although I had been religious my whole life, in the fact that I believed in God, I understood religious history, I can tell you all the books of the Bible, I can tell you the stories, all of it. Um, I never really understood why God never talked back to me. I mean, I talk to him all the time, and why don't I ever hear him talk back to me? And somebody said something, we were sitting in a meeting, and somebody said something, and all of a sudden it just dawned on me that he had been talking to me my whole life, and that was my inner voice, and that was my gut, my consciousness, whatever you want to call it. It sounds a lot more simple than it was at the moment, but it was like really up until that moment. I think I was 30 years old, the biggest aha moment of my life. And I suddenly understood and had belief in myself for the first time. So yeah, that was definitely a moment for sure. A powerful one.
It's interesting how the medicine transforms our perception and our ability to perceive the divine within
Yes.
rather than looking for an external source. I think that's the best part of it. That's what I sense on people who've been working with the medicine enough is I feel this sense of camaraderie because we're at peace in our hearts. It's the whole
Yeah.
namaste thing, like that when you're in that place where the universe resides in you and I'm in that place in me, then we're really in the same space.
We are. We are. And it's such a calm space, you know. I mean, you nailed it. That's it. That's what the medicines have brought to me is understanding that it's within me. So when I say that my idea of God has changed, I understand now I am God. You are God. I mean, it goes so much deeper, but I just see it so differently. I get it. I see it. I get it for myself, not for anyone else. I see it. So it's incredible. It's been incredible. It's very empowering and it's very comforting. Yeah, there's many things to it.
No, I don't think I'm going to.
Mm.
Oh, you can. You can see it. Look.
I can see.
It's my little kaleidoscope. I read a lot. I'm
Mm.
Geek Squad, right? And Joe Dispenza talks about fractals and how we're all a fractal of each other on some level.
Yeah,
And the Hindu texts say that too, and certainly we see it in the tapestries, like the Huichol stuff. All
sure.
of those fabrics and the Amazonian ones are showing the energy connections between everything. Um, well, so it's interesting because Dispenza uses a kaleidoscope program for meditation with people, and
Mhm.
it defrags your brain so that you
Mhm.
kind of shift and it tricks your brain. I'm into brain hacks too because I think that there are hacks that are kind of like the medicine that are non-medicine that we can
Mhm.
distribute widely to people like water. Here, everyone,
Sure.
you're thirsty, just have some of this, please.
Right.
For the love of God, do this. The whole world will change a lot if 10,000 people take one step forward rather than trying to get 10 people to take 1,000 steps,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
So the kaleidoscope is a great symbol, not just for neural networks, which are fractal, by the way, and hyperdimensional. The pulsations that they make um, are measurable. We can now get like a graphic readout of what a certain type of thought or feeling looks like because it does things with our biochemistry.
Mm.
What you imagine in your brain has an unmitigated pathway to the heart. So if I imagine myself doing something happy, um, I like candy apples in summer because we
Mhm.
used to go to the fair and we used to go to the boardwalk. And that for me is associated with a candy apple. And when I think about that
Mm.
shiny color of red, it just kind of makes me happy.
Mhm.
So I do this meditation where I go through all of the colors. This is what we teach our corporate people. We teach them how to play and be happy, essentially. And that shifts their brainwaves. And the more and more you get better at that, the more and more it seeps into your fabric. Well,
Mm.
so um, the neat thing is the more you do it, the more it becomes habit. So
Mhm.
if you do this like 3 times a day, you're holding this visual and this feeling with your mind. You're using your mind to reverse engineer your heart. Most of the time, we're allowing our fears and our anxiety to run the show. And that's sending chemical responses to our poor little animal body. It's
Right.
saying, oh, that person's out to get you. Oh, that person doesn't like you. Or, ooh, you're fat. And then what happens? You stress yourself out and you make yourself fat, don't you?
Mhm.
But you get the picture, right? And we can apply
Yes.
that to anything.
Right.
But what we've learned by our research with the church is that we can reverse engineer it. And so thinking about that candy apple, right? That makes me happy. And then that shifts my brain waves on that monitor. And the more
Right.
and more you give yourself that space through breathing and meditation, you're creating space in there where you're able to recognize, wow, something shifted. My heart chakra shut down. I felt a pinch. Or, oh, I haven't taken a deep breath in a long time. Maybe I should put my hand on my heart. You know what I mean? That we train ourselves that that's our new baseline, that that's our new
What was I
normal.
reading? I was reading something the other day, and it was talking about how our bodies don't know the difference of whether it's actually happening or it's just a
Right.
memory of it happening. So while that can be on the negative side, right? It could also, I don't mean negative, but on
The
things that are
cortisol side.
difficult,
Yeah.
right? It could
Uh-huh.
also be on the positive side. Our body doesn't know if it's actually happening or if I'm just remembering this joyful experience. The same chemicals are being released.
Yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
And we can reverse engineer that. So that's our program. I mean, it's called Sacred Self Recovery. And that's the developing that that's the offering that we're developing, or that's the developing that we're offering, actually.
I'm going to
But
put
it's
this
a
up here now too so people can see
combination of different
this.
things. We ask you to vision what you truly want. We ask you to commit to habits changing. Usually that means replacing one with another, taking a habit that you know is not a good habit and
Mhm.
replacing it with a good one. And in the West, we talk about meaning. What kind of meaning do you want to have in your life? What kind of things do you want to visualize? How do you want your body to feel? And then knowing that you can practice the habit of installing that new app that gives you joy, that makes you more
Mhm.
effective. $650
Mm.
billion are being lost in corporate America every year to distractions in the workplace. Because why? People are stressed out, man. That's why.
Stressful times.
Yeah. Was
Stressful
corporate America
times.
stressful for you? I was so stressed out by it.
It was. I was in up until really 2.5 years ago when I, well, I guess before COVID, but yes, I was in hospitality. I have been a resort manager my whole life, and it was very stressful. It was very stressful, and yeah, I worked in the corporate world, and I could I could not go back. It was very stressful.
But you're bringing your corporate professional polish
Yes,
and intelligence
100%.
to
Yes, just
this, which is
bringing it
something
to
I
this.
love about you. You know, you're part of my inspiration for looping back and wanting to share with people at a different level, at an organized, polished, kind of professional level like you do.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's when I first started coming in and knowing that I wanted to do something. I didn't know what. I didn't know what. Of course, everybody comes off their first plant medicine experience is like, oh, I just want to quit my job and jump into this world and become a coach or whatever. Whatever it is you want to do. And of course, I felt the same way. But I was told by a very good person who had been in this space a long time, what's right today is going to be right in 6 months, and it's going to be right in a year. And they were right about that. So I didn't know exactly what it looked like, but I was told at the time that you've got all these gifts, as we all do from our previous life, that you bring into this with you, and that's what I've done. Yeah, I'm so grateful I was in hospitality management for all those years because it allows me the skill set to do some of the things I need to do. So most grateful for it. It'd be hard for me to go back to being a hotel manager, but
Well, but you bring the organization, the people skills, the marketing, the branding. Your branding is very clear. Like it's very easy to understand what you're doing,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Well, same with you. You have done the same. What part of the corporate world were you in? I mean, as far as bringing your skill set from, I call it my previous life. I mean, it wasn't really my previous life because I'm the same person. But what I did with my life, where I lived, what I put in my body, I mean, everything, I call it my previous life. How about you, though?
Um, I did consulting as far as culture and language for the public defenders and worked with law enforcement, prosecution, whatever. Um, and then I worked in like the hotel and tourism industry when I
Mhm.
was in Spain.
Yeah.
So, like one of my other hats is doing like high end tours. So there's a place out west that I love called the Tamaya, and it's like
Mm,
a beautiful hotel resort with a world class golf course and restaurants and everything,
mm,
horseback riding. So I would take people
nice.
from there out to the sacred sites in New Mexico and like a
Mm,
kind of a out of Africa, hopefully, type of way to
mm,
spas and
beautiful.
mineral springs. And I love being
Mm,
able to do that, like take people
mm,
and really like go deep with them in nature and especially at sacred sites. That's one of my
mhm,
favorite things because the force is
mm.
strong in those sacred sites and it kind of speaks for itself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the medicine.
It's pretty wild.
Well, I loved having you on and talking. As always, we will continue this conversation. Let's again just put out there where we can find you. And I did put up here as well a QR code, but they can find you online.
So cool. Okay. I haven't got QR codes going yet, but I'm gonna have to pop one into my keynote. So I'm always looking at your stuff. You can find me at Church of the Natural Law. We have retreats twice a year in New Mexico and in New York, in Long Island,
Okay.
at Equinox. And so you can find that at churchthenaturallaw.org. And then Finding the Force is my consulting and private coaching kind of channel. So just hit me up on there. We have a couple of different packages, mostly 5 week packages for microdosing. And I would love to refer people to you for your wonderful microdosing. Work together and,
Yeah,
get
yes,
people a beautiful
absolutely.
source. Those chocolates are top notch, right?
Thank you so much. Yes, I that's what's important. That's why we do what we do, to work with people and bring this together. This isn't about, me and Mark and the plant medicine. This is about bringing all the community together and pooling our resources. Pooling our resources. You've got
Well,
an
when we're
incredible
done
thing
here,
there
let's
that you offer.
talk. Let's talk because it's really, really hot here on Long Island. Cannabis is now legal, and the decriminalization of, entheogens is on the horizon.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So,
Okay. So we
and the
will.
people are asking for it. They're asking about it. And so I started talking about chocolate mushroom bonbons, and they said, "Ooh, can we have a party?" I said, "Wait, I have to talk to Michelle."
You can. I will provide the bonbons.
Okay, we'll
Very
talk about it
delicious.
as soon as we get off the call, real quick.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Miss Courtney. I love you so much. You're one of
I
the first
love you
people that we
too.
talked to in this on this path, and you're just, it's been a lot of fun getting to know you, and um, I just enjoy talking with you. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you so much. I can't wait.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care, and we will continue.